Good evening, guys, and welcome back to my channel. Now, I'm not. Good evening, guys, and welcome back to my channel. Now, I'm not going to read this word for word for obvious reasons. I don't need my channel taken down like YouTube. But this is the story that I was talking about right here. My last video about Samson and some judges. As you see right here, the story of Samson and Delilah. And I'll try to go scrolling down slowly so y'all can read it. But you see how she manipulates him. You know, she just keeps pressuring him. She keeps nagging at him until he gives in. You know, it's just manipulation. And he should have known, but he was so in love with her apparently. And you see that he starts to crack, and right here he caves in and makes himself vulnerable to her. And she sells him out to the Philistines, and she gets what amounts to about $11 million in today's U.S. dollars from the Philistines. And you see it causes his downfall right there. But, you know, this story is about as red pill as you can get. Now, just because most preachers don't talk about things like this does not mean that there's not red pill stories in the Bible. The Bible tends to be about as red pill as you can get. As you see in Judges chapter 16, and then you know, Delilah causes Samson's downfall. Right there. Now I'm going to see if I can find the Adam and Eve story in the Bible on the internet. And you have another red pill story right here. See in Genesis chapter 2, verses 4. Onward now to chapter 3, verse 24. You have this. The story of creation in the Bible. This is an account of the heavens and the earth where they were created. The Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up, for the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground, and the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground, and breathed in his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Now if you notice that the Lord made man first, and you have all of these animals have the female of the species, but the female of mankind had not been created yet. And I believe there's a reason for that. But I'll scroll down slowly so y'all can read it. And just read the most important parts for y'all. But for Adam no suitable helper was found, so the Lord God caused man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs, and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of a man." That's why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. But then you have this. Right here. You have the devil tempting the woman. And the devil uses the woman to tempt the man. See, the woman gives it a temptation, and then she tempts the man. And granted, Adam made the decision to eat of the fruit too. That's his mistake, and that's on him too, partially, but he just loved her so much. And you see what happens. Just like with Samson. He loved Delilah so much, and he did what the Lord told him not to do, and spoke of his vulnerability. And see, the fall of man was caused by a woman. This is also a red pill story. Right there. Now another thing. I'll go on to show you all this. And I'm not going to read it word for word because I don't need my channel taken down. But I'll let you all read it on your own. And this is very important. Right there, Proverbs chapter 5. And I'll scroll down slowly so y'all can read it for yourselves. You see this right here? I'll just read the most important parts. And all of it's important. But you see this, keep to a path far from her. Do not go near the door of her house, lest you lose your honor to others, and your dignity to one who is cruel. And that part's important. Lest strangers feast on your wealth. That is also important. What do strangers feast on your wealth happen in this society? Well, right now, from what I see in the divorce court, you have another man and the woman feasting on your wealth. You see this right there, and you toil enrich the house of another. See how women like to run off to another man and everything, and then you toil enriches that other house. At the end of your life, you will groan when your flesh and body are spent, You will say, how I hated discipline, how my heart spurned correction. I would not obey my teachers or turn my ear to my instructors, and I was soon in serious trouble in the assembly of God's people. And you see that right there. That's very important, I feel anyways. So let me pull up the next one. Yeah, this right here. Proverbs chapter 6 and 7. And I'll scroll down slowly. Now let's read this part. At the window of my house, I looked down through the lattice. I saw among the simple. I noticed among the young men a youth who had no sense. He was going down the street near her corner, walking along in the direction of her house at twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark night set in. Then out came a woman to meet him, dressed like and I'll let you read it, and with crafty intent. She is unruly and defiant. Her feet never stay at home. No, the street, now in the squares, at every corner she lurks. She took hold of him and kissed him, and with brazen face she said, Today I fulfill my vows, and I have food for my fellowship offering at home. So I came out to meet you, I looked for you, and have found you. I have covered my bed with colored linens from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink deeply of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. My husband is not at home. He has gone on a long journey. He took his purse filled with money and will not be home till full moon. You see, that's a very common thing in today's society right here. Right there. With persuasive words, she led him astray. She, and I'll let you read it, him, with her smooth talk, all at once he followed her. Like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose till an arrow pierces his liver, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life, and that's important right there. Now then, my sons, listen to me. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways, or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are mighty throng. Her house is a highway to the grave, leading down the chambers of death. And that's very important, and I don't see very many preachers talking about that these days, because I mean, they speak of, how you need to get married and all this other rot. I mean, there's not enough material out there being told to young men so they can make better decisions, in my opinion. Granted, the Bible does say that you should get married before you have sex. But that's like a voluntary thing, though. You don't have to want that. You don't have to do that. You don't need that. Contrary to popular belief in today's culture, you don't need that. In fact, life can go on without it. But I recall somewhere in one of Paul's books, I'm trying to think of which one it was. I remember at one time at a church I used to go to, you had a Bible study talking about it. I'm trying to think of what book it was in. I thought it was Acts, but it might be 1 Corinthians. Let me look it up. Alright, looks like I found it. Yeah, this is what that Bible study was about right here. I found it. So I remembered wrong. It was 1 Corinthians. It wasn't Acts. And you see this right here. Let me see if my camera will focus. And I'll just read parts of it, not all of it, because I don't need any strikes against my channel. Now, for the matters you wrote about, it is good for man not to have. Then you can read that right there. With a woman. But since immorality is occurring, each man should have relations with his own wife, and each woman with her own husband. The husband should fulfill his marital duty to his wife, and likewise the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her own body, but yields it to her husband. In the same way, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but yields it to his wife. Do not deprive each other, except perhaps by mutual consent and for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. I say this as a concession, not as a command. I wish that all of you were as I am, but each of you has your own gift from God. One has this gift, another has that. Now to the unmarried and the widows I say, it is good for them to stay unmarried as I do, but if they cannot control themselves, they should marry, for it is better to marry than to burn with passion. To the married I give this command, not I, but the Lord. A wife must not separate from her husband, but if she does, she must remain unmarried or else be reconciled to her husband. And a husband must not divorce his wife. To the rest I say this, I not the Lord. If any brother has a wife who is not a believer, and she is willing to live with him, he must not divorce her. And if a woman has a husband who is not a believer, and he is willing to live with her, she must not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband has been sanctified to his wife, and the unbelieving wife has been sanctified through her believing husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but as it is, they are holy. But if the unbeliever leaves, let it be so. The brother or the sister is not bound in such circumstances. God has called us to live in peace. How do you know, wife, whether you will save your husband? Or how do you know, husband, whether you'll save your wife? And I'll just scroll down slowly at this point so y'all can read. I feel that this is important for a lot of you guys to read. First Corinthians 7. Now there you go, I've shown y'all what I was talking about. But with that red pill topic covered in this video, I'll go show y'all my new additions to this aquarium. I have 6 neon tetras in this aquarium that I added in today. I always wanted to get neon tetras, but I only had the opportunity to do it today. So I did it because I saw in a YouTube video how neon tetras can get along with tiger barbs. So I decided to test it, and they get along just fine. So I have a school tank right here, a school of 6 tiger barbs, a school of 4 corridors, and a school of 6 neon tetras sitting there. And it's pretty fun to watch. And over here is my cichlids. Now this one right there is pretty cool because his color changes. That yellow striped one. See, earlier his underbelly changed to blue. So their colors can change almost like that of a chameleon. But at a later point, I'll do some more aquascaping, I think. Maybe a few months down the road. Add in maybe a few more moss balls and other aquatic plants. I'm hoping that that plant right there spreads out, but it may not. Anyways, thank you for watching, and have a blessed night.